Welcome everyone to Community Tech Networks, CTN's monthly webinar celebrating librarians. We are so glad you're here. I'm going to fly through the introductory comments so that we can get right into it. I'm Becca Wright. Again, welcome. Please make yourself comfortable. Please do feel free to use the chat to ask your questions. We're going to try to get to an audience Q&A. We've got some great panel issues to cover. But if you have questions or comments, please do put them in the chat, and we will try to get to them. April is School Library Month, but we know that libraries extend so far beyond schools. They are truly the anchor institution for most of our communities. They really are the central hub for how communities operate, and we want to celebrate that today. And we have an exciting panel for you. Let me share my screen and pull up our slideshow. You've been welcomed. We're going to jump into the library panel here in just a second. We are very excited to have Dianne Connery from Pottsboro Libraries, Taylor Meriwether from the Oklahoma Department of Libraries, and Bo Ford from the New Mexico State Library System. We will go through the panel most of the time, but please do stick around for the raffle giveaway at the end. That's going to be LibrariLIFT. Libraries, the original digital navigators. It's a $300 value, so please stick around and we'll give away a few of those. Very quickly, our capacity building team at CTN is led by Skye Downing, who's going to make some comments here in just a second. She is our Programs and Partnership Director. Focusing on the chat today is Josie Boyle, who is our Curriculum Manager for Digital Equity. Again, I'm Becca Wright. I'm the Learning Management System Administrative Manager in addition to assisting with curriculum. And we are very excited to welcome Jess Strum, who is our Senior Program Manager in Texas, working very hard on a digital equity partnership program and Navigator implementation program for our Methodist Healthcare Ministries grant. So we're very excited to welcome Jess Strum. Now I'll turn it over to our director, Skye Downing, for a few introductory comments before the panel introduces themselves. Skye?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well today. I just accidentally closed down my notes, so bear with me as I wing it here. I would like to introduce this session by taking a moment to kind of gather our thoughts and build some framework for this conversation. And so this slide that you're looking at here today, I'm going to ask you guys to journey back to Blowing Rock, North Carolina with me, circa 1970s. Blowing Rock is a town of about 1,400 people nestled in the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina. It is home to Tweetsie Railroad, Mildred the Bear, a 1.2 billion year old rock formation that is its namesake, and an incredibly romantic Native American legend of lovers reunited at the top of that cliff, a Chickasaw maiden and a Cherokee warrior reunited by Great Spirit. So next slide, please. Blowing Rock is also home to a beautiful stone library, a community library that is situated on the main street in the small town across from the town hall. This is a 100-year-old institution. They celebrated 100 years last year in 2023. And this is the library that I spent my childhood years growing up in. I whiled away hours of my life inside of these walls. I spent the summers with my grandparents in Blowing Rock, and I took dance in the park next door to this library, and then met with the library, Miss Grace Carr, and she would have a stack of Nancy Drew, Trixie Belden, Hardy Boys mysteries ready for me. She knew right where I was in my series. She knew which ones I had read, which ones I had in my home collection, and which ones I was longing to read. She knew me by name. Year by year, she marked my growth and my progression. And to this day, I definitely hold this experience and this library accountable to my love for all things forensic science and mystery related and criminology related and so on and so forth. I even, if you know me well, you know that I'm actually quite addicted to forensic data analysis as well. So it's a problem, but a good one to have. So that said, this institution chose to focus on it, of course, because I grew up in this community. But I also chose to focus on it because it is a good starting point for this conversation. 100 years old, and they proudly boast being tech phobic. I was able to return 7 years ago with my son and walk him through the doors of this institution, and it has not changed. Generations of family come from miles around to show their kids the card catalog that has been there for 100 years. So they truly boast this. And to the point of there are no electronics, there are no digital devices inside the library, not even an electronic gun to scan you out when you check out. They still use the card catalog system. They still use the old checkout system. So that said, they may be considered tech phobic or proudly boast that they are tech phobic, and that may work for this community, but they still had to evolve, and they do offer free Wi-Fi inside of these walls. You must bring your own device, but if you are in the library with your own device, you can connect to their Wi-Fi free of charge and do whatever you need to do there. So it's a ghost from the past, but they have had to evolve. And I think that this is a great place to kind of frame this conversation about the differing roles that libraries have had to take on and continue to have to take on in this digital age that we live in. Whether it is what works for this community, providing Wi-Fi for free, or whether it is venturing into healthcare navigation, workforce development, digital skills training, all of the things. We know that librarians and libraries as community anchor institutions are becoming much more than just this trusted resource, this trusted hub that we go to do our research and to become knowledgeable. And, they're doing much more. And librarians having to, I apologize for my chiming in, librarians are having to be much more than just a library resource. So with that said, I would like us to dive in, and I thank you for humoring me on this little walk back in time.
Thank you, Sky. And in the spirit of the rapid evolution that is taking place in libraries, we would like to turn it over for the panelists to introduce themselves. We have Dianne Connery from Pottsboro Area Library, Taylor Meriwether, who is the Technology and Digital Accessibility Officer for the Oklahoma Department of Libraries, and Bo Ford, the Digital Equity Program Manager for New Mexico State Libraries. I'm going to stop the share, and I'm going to turn it over to Dianne.
Okay, thanks very much. And I want to go visit that library. I love the sounds of that. But Pottsboro may be the other end of the spectrum from that. So I moved to this rural community, Pottsboro, Texas, which is 90 miles north of Dallas in 2010. And I didn't want to meet anybody. I didn't want to volunteer. I didn't want to work. I just wanted to look out at my view of Lake Texoma. And shortly after that, I was invited to a library board meeting, and the board meeting received no taxpayer funding. and they were run all volunteers, and all the books were donations. And they were saying in the meeting that they had 14 months left of money in the bank before they needed to close. And somehow that day, I just saw the possibilities of what the library could be, and the impact it could have on the community. But I had no background in libraries. But I got involved, and then the next month I became the board president. And what I saw was, for us to be sustainable, we had to become really important to the community. And I had raised my kids in large cities, and they had access to, up-to-date, cutting-edge technology. And here I saw that people were coming into the library who didn't have internet at home, didn't know how to use computers. And especially I saw that with the youth, and I just wondered how they were ever going to make it in life once they graduated from high school if they weren't comfortable with those things. And so our town is 2,600 people. We serve the whole county. And one of the first things I did was have a semi truck come and cart away 75% of our books. And I got hate letters from some of those volunteers. But luckily, I had gone to an Association of Rural and Small Library conference, and one of the speakers had said, if you're not making people mad, you're not doing enough. And so I have held on to that saying many times. And so our library is not a traditional library. We do a lot of digital inclusion work, and have had fun with that. And I'll get in later to some of the examples of what we've done. But I just will say that my latest interest has been AI. And so, as an example, last night our high school had a STEM night, and they invited us, the library, to come and have a station. And so we were using Dolly. And so it was all age kids. So I would have, second graders come up to me, and I'd talk to them about AI and ask them if they wanted a picture. And so one example was, a little girl said she wanted a koala in outer space eating cotton candy. And so within 30 seconds, there was this fabulous picture, and we talked about AI. So it's really important to me for people in rural communities to have the access to the opportunities they need to reach their aspirations, whatever they are. And so I think libraries have always been about sharing resources and sharing information. And so much of that now comes in the form of online resources and information.
Yep, AI is where it's going. Thank you, Dianne. Taylor.
All right. Hi, I'm Taylor Meriwether. So before transitioning into my role here at the Oklahoma Department of Libraries, I was a library director in rural Oklahoma for 11 years. I say that just to say that when it comes to digital inclusion and just libraries in general, I've been very multifaceted there. Whenever I took over the library in Oklahoma, it was a single room, and it had 2 public computers. The books, that it was very outdated. Let's be very plain. It was very outdated. By the time that I did resign my position, the library was moved into a building 4 times the size. We had digital printers, laser engraver and cutter. We had digital literacy trainings, but many more computers than that. And then also laptops that people were able to come and use. And I had been following the broadband initiative while I was director of that library. And through that, decided that I would like to make a change and come over to the Oklahoma Department of Libraries. This technology and digital accessibility role is a brand new role. I'm the first one to sit in the seat, which is super exciting. One joke that I like to make is, with it being so new and with so many initiatives out there, I'm building the plane as I fly it. And so, but it's been amazing seeing just the different aspects of the role that I didn't fully anticipate working, which I'll get into in more detail later, but just brief synopsis of it, just even working one-on-one with internet service providers. That's something that I didn't really expect. I didn't see how beneficial it would be, but it's paid off like crazy. And so, but yeah, it's been an amazing journey so far, and I'm super excited to be part of this webinar.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Taylor.
Thank
And
you.
I just have to make one pun.
Yeah.
Taylor spent her morning, I kid you not, rescuing a boa constrictor from the side of the road, and just used the analogy of building the plane. And so you know what's coming, snakes on a plane.
Snakes on a plane. I love it.
It's coming. And Bo.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Bo Ford with the New Mexico State Library here. And I just want to thank Becca and Sky for putting this together, and Josie and Jessica for your work as well at CTN. Nonetheless, it is just a great honor to be a panelist alongside Taylor and Dianne. I just have high regard for the two of them, and I've actually reached out to them in previous seasons, about separate, initiatives for, for libraries. So it's just an honor to, to be here and speak with everyone. But to get into a little bit of my background, I'm new to New Mexico. Moved from Detroit, I believe in the month of October, and began the role here, which is a new role, much like Taylor and a lot like Dianne. Very new to the library ecosystem, but was working in the digital equity and inclusion ecosystem in the city of Detroit with Connect 313. I was a community ambassador for a local nonprofit, and really built out a digital equity program for the Osborne community. So great opportunity to work with residents and constituents, and took this opportunity. You just saw the job description. I saw libraries, and I saw digital equity, and I just loved it, fell in love with it. And here we are working with our rural population. About 91% of New Mexicans falls within the covered populations. And there's no better way to bridge the digital divide in New Mexico other than through libraries. We rank 5th in size, but 48th in population. So we have a lot of ground to cover. And we have about 130 plus libraries scattered throughout New Mexico. So my job is to visit them all. And I'm about 30% or so through that, given a month of probation for speeding in a state vehicle. So if you're a state employee, slow down. And that is an ongoing joke around here. They will not let me live that down. Nonetheless, we're just crafting a program that's unique for New Mexico. I mean, it's a beautiful landscape, but that's just not it. We do have great food, but that's just not it. We have great people that are ready to, bridge the digital divide alongside me. So I'll get to those shout outs later, but just thank you for allowing me to be here, and I'm ready to get into it.
Thank you, Bo. I'm going to use your speeding analogy for libraries these days. It's hard to slow down. That's why we have you all here today. You're speeding, and that's your nature, and that's what libraries need. So first question for the panel. Take a couple of seconds and just brag about the digital inclusion efforts in your libraries currently, or on the radar screen.
Well, I love to brag. I'm happy to do that. So through IMLS funding back in 2016, I think, we started the first esports team in the nation in a public library, as far as I know. And it was beneficial to the young people in so many ways. because video games are social capital. So it got a connected learning. It was a back end to them learning technology to be doing something that they loved. So we got that. We are very dependent on grant funding in many ways because our town has such a small tax base. Our operating budget from the city and county, $39,000. That's salaries, that's computers, utilities, cleaners, that's everything, $39,000. So we're really dependent upon grants. So when Emergency Connectivity Fund came out, partnered with some other libraries and a local ISP, and were awarded $550,000 to build towers around Pottsboro and connect 500 homes. We did neighborhood access stations. So we built hotspots, permanent hotspots at the tackle shop and at the volunteer fire department so that people could get to those. And we had Texas State Library funding for Digital Navigator. And that's our biggest program right now, is a Digital Navigator funded through NDIA. And he's probably the most popular person in town. He actually makes house calls, drives to people's homes to help them set up things. He's helped an 83-year-old man with his dating profile. And so, you know, digital equity, it can mean a lot of different things. And so it really is for him about meeting people where they are and what their needs are.
So just to kind of piggyback off of Dianne on the grants side of it, it's been really fascinating being in this role at the Oklahoma Department of Libraries, because now instead of applying, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, they're still applying for grants, but also I get to put grants out to the libraries. And the last one that, actually my first one in this role was a technology grant. And there were two different categories. One was just updates, like, hey, we need you to check the age of your existing computers and everything. And if your hardware is 5 years old or older, you can apply to get completely updated hardware, new computers, printers. But another one that we had on there was innovative. And so we had an innovative category for people to apply for. And one of the awardees, amazing. So they are getting kits to build their own desktops, and it's a teen program. So the teens are going to build their own desktops. And within that, once they're built, they will then do like a flight simulator software on it. Because the school and the library, they work in conjunction, where kids can actually work on their pilot's license and be able to obtain their pilot's license by graduation. And so that's one of the interesting, innovative programs that we're helping with, as well as working on some really cool partnerships as far as with digital navigators, telehealth. I say this all the time. The people around me are probably just like, oh, here she goes again. It's just, there's so much coming down the pipeline right now that staying on top of everything, it's a constant struggle just to see, you know, what is available, what the needs are. And so, but it's phenomenal, just the amount of resources that there are now. Because I was in Diane's shoes whenever I was the library director, I was very dependent on grants, and that's how we were funded. And if we wanted to do anything innovative or different whatsoever, it was through grants. And so it's amazing just the amount of opportunities there are out there.
So here in New Mexico, at times we can be a bit financially constrained. I'll say it that way. Nonetheless, the approach that I take to bridging the digital divide and highlighting some of the programs that are available, you know, the digital resources are very relational for me. So a big chunk of my job is to visit libraries. And that's when I get an opportunity to get to know that librarian, you know, and I get to know their community. And then I begin to present, the things that are coming down the pipeline for us, but what's available for librarians from the New Mexico State Library standpoint is our Niche Academy, which features the Homeless Library Academy, so you can get training on how to handle those situations. Library 101, so computer basics, think like a tech support, customer service strategies, grant writing basics, health, legal, and social service questions, describe how to form relationships with the right partners, engage in reflective practice after answering health, legal, and social service questions, and then leadership management training, community relations, planning and project management, and then asset management. So those resources are available for our librarians on the New Mexico State Library portal. And then the resources that are available for patrons are listed under El Portal, which is Career Online High School, where you can get your high school diploma. Brain Fuse Help Now, which is it's going to provide online tutoring, and it also has Job Now. And then our Gale database, which is an academic database, and that's statewide. So any library can access that. We offer New York Times, New York Cooking, New York Games. That's statewide as well. And then our ebooks. And what I also like that we offer is, it's the child in me, but Ben's Guide to the U.S. Government. It's an introduction to how the U.S. government, works. And I've, since assuming this role, I've had to sit with that. We know the bill is just a bill but this is good because it promotes civic participation for youth. And so these are some of the resources that are available for librarians to help facilitate in their communities.
Speaking of the U.S. government, Dianne, you were just in DC. So can you tell us a bit about that? And can you tell us a bit of lessons learned and advice when it comes to grants? I know that is what your life is at times. Tell us about DC.
That was my first opportunity to go meet with my representatives, and it will not be my last time. It was so interesting. I think many libraries are guilty of not advocating for ourselves, not amplifying the awesome work we are doing. And so many people are left with this stereotypical traditional view of what a library does. And so I had the opportunity, my congressman from Texas is Congressman Fallon, and I was able to meet with him, sit with him for 30 minutes with him and his aide, and then the aide sat with me another 30 minutes after the congressman needed to leave. And so he just talked to me about what I was working on and what I needed help with and how they could help me. And one of the things that he said was a very easy thing for them to do is to write letters of support for grants. So right now I am working on a USDA grant. It's distance learning. And a couple of things about that. Number one, I think libraries are well positioned to do it, but the capacity it takes to write that grant is just, it is overwhelming. It is a very heavy lift. Just one example of that is they require a 15% match for whatever the award is. So I'm asking for $152,000. So I have to come up with a 15% match, which you can imagine, given our budget, is a tough thing to do. And the grant itself is so, are we in a floodplain? All these incredible forms we have to fill out. But that being said, the congressman is writing a letter of support for the grant, and I think that should carry some weight. And he said he is happy to do so. And from what I gathered, that would be something for all of our congressmen, that it's not asking them for money, it's just asking them to write a letter. And I used AI to create a letter for them to sign and send it that way. And so I think they're so busy that it helps them quite a bit. If we have, the letter that they can just sign, we'll see if he adjusted or not. But so that was one of the discussion points. The other discussion point is I mentioned the Emergency Connectivity Fund funding we received. We've received 2 rounds of it. The first round of it, I was awarded $32,000 to buy 50 tablets to give to older adults that had data packages on them. And so lots and lots of paperwork to apply and be approved for that. And then in good faith, I went out and spent that money, fulfilled what I had agreed to do. And now it has been a nightmare to get reimbursed for that $32,000. They've reimbursed all but $8,000. And now they keep saying, we've paid you, and they haven't. So for my library to lose $8,000 to have to write it off is a huge blow to us. But at some level, it's like I don't have excuse the pun, the bandwidth anymore to keep fighting it. I have to it's such an emotional drain that I have to just say, okay, I'll lose that $8,000 on it. So that's one of my hopes for all this federal money that is coming. It makes me a little gun shy. Like, you can approve me and I can spend it the way you told me to spend it, and then I have trouble getting reimbursed. It is quite a problem. But anyway, I would say just I'm now inspired to advocate for our library work, not only on the federal level, but going to our state representatives and talking to them. And I do make a habit of getting outside of the library world. So I do a lot of conferences and webinars, et cetera, with ISPs and healthcare providers, and just trying to make sure that we have a seat at the table, because we're so well positioned, we're so deserving, we need to be there, but sometimes it's like having to elbow our way in to get a seat at that table.
Thank you for that. Before we move on, because grants are so essential for libraries, and libraries are so essential for us, Taylor and Bo, I don't expect you to have talking points, but if you do have talking points, or you want to jump in and ask a question or anything about grants, I just want to take the space to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll hop in right now. I mean, essentially, we're working on our proposal for the capacity grant dollars that are coming in. New Mexico was awarded $8.6 million, and I won't go into detail what exactly we're proposing. But yeah, that's what we're crafting is a solution for the entire state. And I think Dianne hit the nail on the head when she said making relationships, building relationships, and that's what it's about. And I've been working hard to build those relationships here in the community with other state agencies as well, to, like Dianne said, elbow my way, to the table. And your desire and passion it may come off as a little aggressive, but the thing is when you have passionate about something and someone beside you or across the table is simply just trying to do their job, and maybe they have the role of an admin or something like that, it's going to be some some pushback, but nonetheless, I would say don't lose that fire. And yeah, lean on, if you struggle with writing grants, lean on ChatGPT to help craft that that plan for you, because I hear it works. And I want libraries to get the funding that we desperately deserve. So, and just know, I would have tuned into this panel if I weren't on it speaking because I knew it's going to be rich with information. So
Well, you've all talked about ISPs. Even in your introductions, you talked about ISPs. So there are a lot of opportunities for libraries to partnership with broadband companies. Let's talk about that. This is for anybody, Dianne, Taylor, Bo, anybody who wants to talk about broadband or partnerships.
Yeah, I'll jump in on this one. So one thing that, well, this is a bit of a soapbox and of mine, soapbox slash personal goal. So I mentioned that I was a director for a rural library. So we had our local ISP, so they had the area completely monopolized. They were the only one available. We didn't have any wireless providers or anything like that. So when it came to our internet, they were the only solution. And they weren't the best either. So we had a wireless company come into town and they approached our town council and said, have we got a deal for you? If we can put our towers on your water towers, we will provide town hall, the library, police, and fire department with free internet. And of course, town hall was like, yes, absolutely. We're going to take the bite. We love this. So the gift that they gave us was around 20 megs, 20 megabytes per second. Now my soapbox, yep, Becca's face said it all. That is not really a gift. That is, especially at this point, it's a hindrance. But what we're running into is we have a lot of ISPs wanting to do this digital philanthropy. I've been approached by them just in this position, and that has become one of the questions that I ask is what speeds are you offering? You know, I'm not against digital philanthropy, you providing the library with completely free service. That's amazing. That's beautiful. That is a gift. But in order to do it, we need to have adequate service. So we need to be at least 100 megabytes per second. And that's the minimum at this point that I've been getting libraries to agree with. But it's fascinating how many libraries we have in Oklahoma right now that are doing this digital philanthropy front, where either I've talked to their ISPs, they've done the legwork, and that's something that it's interesting because I approach libraries. If I have an ISP approach me, I'll call them and say, hey, this internet service provider wants to provide you with free internet. The current one that I'm looking at, there's no cap, there's no term limit to it. It is as long as they're in the area, they want to provide internet, which is great. And there's a lot of librarians who are hesitant because they don't believe that it's completely free. I don't blame them. I actually had a librarian close the door in an ISP's face, like legitimately, like, no, thank you. And then I happened to call the next day and she goes, what? That was real? Oh my God. Because it is one of those that it sounds too good to be true. But then whenever I mentioned to the libraries, like, if you do this, you don't file for E-rate anymore. And they're like, where do I sign? I am ready. Because even if you do that digital philanthropy front where an internet service provider does give you free service, you can still file for category 2 E-rate. So you can still update your equipment. You don't have to file Cat 1 in order to get to Cat 2, which is really fascinating. But I have noticed, at least in Oklahoma, with like the ARPA SLFRF funds coming through, BEAD, there are a lot of new ISPs out there, and they're looking at libraries as community anchor institutes. And this is kind of their like, hello into coming into the communities is, look at what we're providing for the library. And we're over here like, yes, that's beautiful. We love that. So it never hurts to ask. I mean, and all it is, it's a phone call and saying, hey, E-rate takes up a lot of our time. We don't want to apply for this. Is there any way you would give us this gift? I mean, it's, to me, and you could even go with like the grant type approach, take a letter to them and say, this is something that we think, like, let me help you. So there's my little spiel.
Dianne, Bo, working with broadband or anything that you'd like to add about library partnerships or ISPs?
Well, I'll add that I depend on my ISP so much, because when they start talking spectrum and gigahertz and all that, it's just way over my head. I know the people and the needs. He knows the technical things, and by us working together, we can access some funds that neither one of us could get to alone by being a public-private partnership. But it's just so helpful to have that technical advisor there to help me work through what our needs are when I'm filing for category 2, like what firewalls, whatever. And so having this close relationship with my ISP who really cares about our community. One of my fears with all the BEAD money is it's going to be these big players that suck up a bunch of the money, and that it won't get to those of us that really need it in our rural communities. So I want to make sure that we don't get left behind. And in our area, that happens by working with our local provider. Yet again, he has limited capacity. They have to have so much money on account that they can't do anything with when they're applying for some of these grants. It just it needs some tweaking from the federal government to make it realistic for small towns to make this all work.
Yeah, and I'll just quickly add on to this conversation is, luckily for me, my role was prior for E-rate, so the E-rate coordinator, and he's now with the Office of Broadband, and I think he's since had a promotion, and now he's overseeing project managers with the Office of Broadband, and conversations are being had with our public education department to, kind of expand broadband and hopefully move away from E-rate, as Taylor mentioned, which is a really complicated process. So I'm just very thankful that I don't have to deal with that as much, and can focus on, librarians and doing the digital, the more the digital inclusion work. So that's just how we're designed here in New Mexico.
I see Sky has a hand raised real quick, so that I don't put Taylor or anyone completely on the spot. We had a great question. You talked earlier, Taylor, about funding resources. I'm going to turn it over to Sky, and then I'd like to come back to Taylor or Dianne or Bo to give some tips to our audience today about some funding resources that might be useful to look into. Sky?
Thank you, Becca. So yeah, two things really quickly. So I wanted to speak to kind of another aspect of hate to be the naysayer, but the barriers to successful partnership, and that is that you really must know all people in the conversation, all people at the table really need to understand who their decision makers are and where they stand in the decision making process. And I will use as an example, when I was executive director of Austin Freenet, a small local nonprofit here in Austin, Texas, we partnered with the Talker Foundation and Texas Rural Funders to provide hotspots, Wi-Fi enabled hotspots to rural libraries for checkout. And it was a very successful program. The Talker Foundation and Texas Rural Funders had identified the libraries they wanted to work with, and we had 2 libraries that were blocked from working with us because the local mayor decided it was not necessary, and that he did not want, they did not want the entities to participate. So that's, and then other barriers that can come up are, of course, capacity and bandwidth, and librarians feeling like, I don't have the bandwidth to operate this program, help. So knowing that when you bring something to the table as a partnership, like make sure it's a viable partnership. Have you dotted your I's, crossed your T's? Are you providing all of the resources you can to make this something that can be plug and played, so that it is the least restrictive or least burdensome to the library itself and the most impactful to the community that the library serves. So that, and then I did want to just speak to Diane's point about the fear around, especially with what's going on with ACP and other government funding sources where that funding is either hard to retrieve or is eliminated altogether, i.e. ACP wind down. When that with the funding that's coming down the pipeline now, we were on a conversation just yesterday with the Texas BDO, and they were talking about the fact that this is a different governing office that is dispersing the funds, and that the funds will then be applied for via our BDO, our Broadband Development Office, and that those funds will sit with that office and then be dispersed to the agencies with the winning applications. So it's slightly different process. And we did talk to the BDO yesterday about this very thing and about how clear their communication needs to be to the public to help eliminate and alleviate those fears. So just those two things. And then just, yeah, as a grant writer, I'm going to say it again and again and again. Yesterday was the time for us to start talking about partnership. So it is like partnership is the way to go right now with these big funding streams that are coming down the pipeline. And if you feel a little lost in the process of putting together a proposal or writing the grant, partner with the people who are not, because we are all here together in this, and we are stronger together, and we all do what we do well. And so let's combine forces and let's get it done.
Well, and speaking of funding, I want to turn it over to Taylor first because the question was for you, but then open the floor to Dianne or Bo as well, as far as any funding resources that you might like to share.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as like funding resources go, what I did whenever I was director, I would talk to our state library. It's where I am now, though, to find those. So if you are able to find what works for you, I know personally, whenever I was looking for different funding sources, I don't have, actually, I will find it and I link it in the chat, and it's a very simple website, and I use this all the time. I literally would go to Google and do library grants, and it's, I want to say it's librarygrants.blogspot. That is a phenomenal resource, and it's very up to date. That is one thing that I used quite heavily whenever I was a director, but also don't be afraid to reach out to your state library. That's part of our job, is to stay on top of, all the different grants, like Dianne was mentioning, the USDA. Also ALA is a good resource for what grants are available. ARSL, if you're rural, getting on those type of listservs. So if you are able to get on different listservs for your areas, different, like ARSL is phenomenal, that they put out different grant announcements and everything like that. So DIMCO is, they have a good grant search. We'll just say that they do have a really good grant search within their, yes, ARSL website. So Dianne?
Well, I'll add National Library of Medicine. When we launched our telehealth room, they gave us $20,000 to do that, and we have another pending grant with them now, fingers crossed. One unusual partnership a little bit is American Heart Association. And so they have been very generous, giving us blood pressure kits that we check out to the community, but shelving for food for after school snacks. So might consider them. They want to work with libraries. In Texas, the Texas State University Center for Research Center for Translational Health, we've partnered on some things. And so they haven't directly funded me, but they've helped me write grants. And then they've partnered in a way that when we're writing those grants, it builds my credibility to be able to be partnering with them. Another example in Texas, but every state has this, but in Texas, the Texas Technology Access Program, so assistive technology for people who need it. We're a demonstration site, so we have assistive technology that people can come and try. And so just in a way of, I don't know, mercenary sounds too negative, but I do look for what are trends in funding. And so healthcare is a big trend right now, emergency preparedness, disaster response. And so I go to the Rural Health Information Hub for some of those kinds of grants, but just kind of looking forward to where libraries are going.
I am going to jump in here. We did not even get through half, not even half of what the panelists had prepared to discuss. We're going to have a part 2 and 3 and 57. We're going to turn all of our webinars just into library. But before we wrap up, I'm going to start with Bo and then Taylor and Dianne. Let's end on one more thing you want to tell us. Just a bumper sticker. What is one more thing that you want to tell us today, please?
Well, I got a lot of shout outs I wanted to get through, but I'll be respectful, but nonetheless, we have a great senator, Ben Ray Lujan here, who is very progressive in regards to ACP. He's the co-chair of the USF Reform Working Group, and we were awarded some congressionally directed spending dollars that we're utilizing for our telehealth, telemedicine, and distance learning. So we'll be deploying telehealth booths really soon in partnership with UNM Health and Informatic Science Library. Deirdre, I got to shout her out. She's has a library background and loves libraries, and we're just doing a lot of great work. So I'm really excited for this project. Nonetheless, in addition to that, we're working on securing the e-learning licenses. So obviously the gold standards, the North Stars of the world, to get setups. In addition to that, we'll be deploying computing devices that supports 3D imaging for distance learning for kids as well. So we'll be utilizing that those congressionally directed spending dollars and the USDA grant. I'm probably forgetting a lot of stuff, but obviously the resources that we work from are in partnership. So knowing Taylor and having the opportunity to have spoken with Dianne and Sky and Becca yourself, but obviously the CASAs of the world, get on those calls, the Shelbys, obviously the NDIAs and the ALAs, a lot of great information being shared there continually. And I just want to shout out, obviously, the State Library, all of our great staff that are doing excellent work here. Eli Gane, our State Librarian, Kate Alderetti, and the Office of Broadband. And please reach out to your Office of Broadband and talk about digital equity. You know, pull them into your world. You know, to make sure that we can secure library funds from both the capacity and the competitive grants. So, and then lastly, Catherine Nicolau with the City of Albuquerque. She's a broadband manager there. She's the co-chair of the Digital Equity and Inclusion Working Group. So a big, and lastly, a big win for New Mexico, the Connect New Mexico Council. They now want monthly reports from the Digital Equity Working Group. So I think we're doing some really good things, and that's a big, and I know it's small, but it's a big thing that they want that engagement. So yeah, and just reach out to your neighboring states to see what they're doing and see how you can partner. Relationship building is always key. So that I can close it.
Thank you, Bo. Taylor, last thought.
All right. I mean, I have to agree with Bo as far as partnerships. And it's funny, Diane and I were talking earlier this week about how, we shouldn't be afraid to cross our own state lines, and help out our neighbors. I was actually flipping through the participant list on this call, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've met so many people at different conferences and everything. So, shout out to see Becca and Liz and Lou and Grace, like, hey guys, and Sky, like I spoke with Sky in Dallas. So it doesn't matter where you are, what your position is, reach out. You can reach out to your state library. You can reach out to your state broadband office, your local ISPs, and use tools such as like LinkedIn is a great tool to connect with other people. You talk to them, go through past grants. So like if you are thinking about a certain grant, you're not sure, look at the past recipients, give one of them a call. We love to talk about, like, this is what we're doing. It's amazing how often, or actually not how often, how infrequently we get asked, like, what are you working on? So you reach out to those around you. As far as like Oklahoma, we're working with Oklahoma Complete Health with telehealth booths. They're helping us, like, we're kind of doing policies together. You never know where a potential partnership is. Local tribes, Bo with New Mexico, Oklahoma, like, we are very tribal heavy states. Partner with your tribes, talk to them. But that is my biggest piece of advice. It doesn't matter what your position is. Partnership, partnership, partnership. Get those people, get the networking, especially in this digital age. Look at us now. We're on a Zoom call. We're all across the United States right now, and we're all connected. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Bo says relationships. Taylor says partnerships. Diane, last thought.
I'd just say, whatever issue someone has, it is made more difficult without connectivity. And so follow your passion, have whatever connection to digital equity you have. There's probably something in there that it would be really fun for you to pursue. The needs are so great. We can all find a way to plug in a way that energizes us.
Well, there's lots of energy today. Please stay with us, everyone. We're moving right into our giveaway right now. I want to be respectful of your time. Before we move into the giveaway, I want to give an enormous thanks to Diane and Taylor and Bo. I'm not kidding about the other 57 webinars that we're going to have. They were so prepared to talk to you about so many other things. We'll do this again. Very quickly, a plug for next month's webinar. I'm not going to jump to the slides because I want to save time. Next month's webinar is on May 30th. Mental Health Matters. Josie is putting the registration link in. It's going to be a very exciting presentation on mental health, trauma-informed responses, and digital inclusion in the world of digital equity. So please join us for that. Please register. And Sky is going to conduct our raffle. What we're going to do is give away some free library online courses through CTN. It's called Libraries, the Original Digital Navigators. It's a $300 value, and it provides an enormous overview and strategies for any type of digital navigation work in a library environment, including these trends, including the wide variety of patron needs, just about everything that we're working with right now, AI, aging populations, people on the wrong side of the digital divide, and also the way that the library always has historically been the source of information, like the foundation and well of information for a society, is covered in this course. So please stay with us. Sky, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, we're going to do this as quickly as possible. We will be drawing 3 names, so 3 winners. We had over 118 people registered for this call, but only about 45 of them showed up. You must be present to win. So here we go with the first spin. And if you are light or movement sensitive, please turn away from the screen. Lou Flowers, are you still on the call? Please acknowledge in the chat or
Yay!
okay,
Lou's
Lou,
here.
yeah, great. Next winner is is it Barb Dykman or Diekman? Is Barb still on the call?
Barb, are you here? Okay, let's keep going, Sky.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Warren Davis, are you still on the call? Warren Davis? Nope.
Let's keep going.
Angela Balias? Oh, we got people dropping off, unfortunately. Okay, well, we'll just keep going. We got 2 more winners. Go on.